Okay, let's start recording now. Cool. So, yeah. Okay, cool. Hey guys. So, welcome to I think the fourth Devlog episode. This one is going to be about um clothing simulation. Clothing simulation. Um, this is quite an interesting one. I've spent a lot of time this last few days learning it, um, experimenting in it, trying different things out. Because it's a really undocumented part of Unreal actually, um, like weirdly undocumented. There's almost like nothing there, and well there is, but it's very much like almost idealized cases where it's like, well, like ideal cases where it's like a flag, or a cape, or a trench coat where it's just the bottom, or like a scarf. You know, things that are very much like loose and not very like on the body as well. So not very complex like things to be simulated. But for things like t-shirts and trousers and anything somewhat fitted in a sense, or complex in terms of how the movement, like complex in terms of movement, there's not much documentation. Pretty much, there's actually none. So it took a lot of experimenting, a lot of figuring out what everything does and all the different aspects of it. To fully understand like all about clothing simulation. And after a couple of days of trying stuff out, I think I'm sort of at the point where now I can go ahead and make a real attempt at it. So that's what we're gonna do today. Yeah, we're gonna have a good attempt and see how we get on. So yeah, cool. Let's make sure I'm recording here. Cool. Let's crack on. So first things first, we're gonna create a new folder. I'm gonna call this Josh PA. We'll be verbose. Let's call it physics assets. Now, the reason why we're gonna do is, what I'll do is I'll make this a very more like tutorially guidey thing, so you guys can follow along. Because I guess since there's no guide out there, this can sort of be a guide for people while I do it as well. I will mess up in this, but yeah, I'm not expecting anything else. But yeah, okay, cool. So first things first, with clothing simulation. Well, if we go into the Josh mesh at the moment here, as you see, his cloth has nothing on him. Uh, but if you select a piece of clothing, we're gonna do today the trousers, t-shirt, and hat, the bucket hat. If you select a piece of clothing, let's start with the bucket hat, and this is what our clothing simulation name is gonna be called. So we call it Josh bucket. Oh no, we'll just call it bucket hat. Yeah, bucket hat. We create. Now, as you can see here, it creates this clothing data, and this clothing data is what we're going to use to, to basically create the simulation at runtime. And it has this thing called paint where you can paint on simulation values. So if you see here, what I'll do is I'll change the show so it shows only the cloth session. Okay, so you see here, this shows just the hat itself, and these paint values represent a paint. And now, if you go down here on this left side, you see all these different settings like masks, config, cloth painting view. We'll go through each of them when we get to it, but we won't rush through anything. But yeah, basically, you're gonna paint on values, and that's gonna represent a level of simulation. And what you're gonna simulate is different masks. And now there's 4 different masks you can have. So one is the max distance, the other is backstop distance, the third is backstop radius, and the last is anim drive multiplier. These all do different things in terms of the clothing simulation, and so basically you can apply one of each to the piece of clothing data, and you can have one max distance, one backstop radius, one anim drive. You can make multiple, and then you can test them out differently, so you can have like loads of different configurations of that. But really, you're only going to want to have one of each at the end. And for this case, we're going to just in this case, we're just going to I seem to have okay. Yeah, in this case, we're just going to just have one. So let's show the character again. Show all sections. Ooh. I don't like that. Show only cloth section. Show all. I kind of wanna. Okay. Show all sections. How am I gonna get this to be looking how I want it to look when I go to paint this? Let's see. What do we want to look? Mesh. We'll get to it anyway. We're just gonna paint the values on anyway, so it doesn't really matter. I'm gonna press this and go on to here. Yeah, we'll do it anyway. Anyway, so yeah, so you're gonna paint on all these different things, these different masks, and then you can have like a paint value. And what this represents is the paint value is the value of whatever target you have. So if I paint on a max distance of 100 onto here, onto this clothing data, what this is going to do, that's going to be a max distance of 100 centimeters, in which this painted point can move from the from its mesh value, so its initial value, which is this here. So, and that could be the same for the t-shirt. That's the same for the trousers. So basically, rundown of each one. Max distance is the maximum distance the cloth can move from its original position. The backstop distance is basically, this is going to be really important, I think. From what I've experimented with, this is really important and really key when it comes to making sure things don't intersect or cross over, and limiting how far things back go. Because basically, this is like, this limits the movement within this. And then this provides like the radius so that it prevents it from going into that. So these two work in tandem. And then this is to do with animations and like how it pulls things into the position. I haven't done much experimenting with that. I don't know necessarily if we'll use that, but we will leave it there for now and come back to it. And yeah, so yeah, when we're painting, when we're actually painting on values, I'll come to this when we get to that. But one thing that's really important, I want to make clear, like the physics assets now. So obviously, when you create a skeleton, you create a character, you have a physics asset. Your physics asset here, as you can see, has all these different capsules, and these provide collisions for the body. And what's really key to note is that that is what your cloth will collide with. So we are the cloth value we paint and the simulation values will collide with these physics capsules when we like allow them to when we simulate them. And then this we have to create capsules, or like change capsules, and manipulate capsules so that the cloth can collide in a way in which it doesn't intersect the mesh, and also looks realistic. So one of the key parts in clothing simulation is sculpting your mesh, because unlike engines like Blender or Maya, we can't just say, oh, the skin is the collision capsule. For Unreal, we have to actually create these capsules and sort of specify the area in which that's going to be. What do we want our clothing to collide with? And that can be quite complex and time consuming. So when I'm doing this in this episode, I will plan on speeding it up, so it's not crazy boring for everyone. Let me. Yeah. So I just keep checking recording because I don't want to mess up and have to redo this again. So yeah, let's crack on really. Let's just get going. Cool. So one thing that I wanted to make sure that I'm about to do now. The key thing when you're making these things, and this is one thing they never talk about in all the tutorials I've watched, is you see all these physics assets. Yeah, a lot of people just go in here and start. Okay, let's start sculpting the head, sculpting the chest. Well, one thing that comes when it comes to clothing simulation in Unreal, you actually have a limited number of capsules that you can use. There is like a finite amount. I think I'm not sure, like 20 or something like that are able to be collisions with the piece of clothing, like actually provide collision values. So when you have collisions for the entire body, this is your ragdoll as well. Having one singular asset that you use for your ragdoll physics as well as your clothing physics, it limits both. It means your ragdoll can only behave a certain way that consolidates your clothing simulation, but that's too much of a compromise. So what we can actually do is create multiple physics assets for each piece of clothing data, and use that to give us a lot more freedom in how we want the assets, the clothing simulation to behave. So that's really key if you're doing this yourself and you're trying to work on some more complex clothing. If it's something really simple, like you're just trying to make the hat do the hat or something, then you could easily just manipulate this head. Like that's really nothing. Like you could just keep the same physics asset if you're doing some very basic simulation, or your character you don't really care. Like if it has a cape on or something like that, you could just change the capsule there and enlarge the collision capsule, so it collides properly. But if you're doing something a bit more complex, it's really worth your while to create separate physics assets. It just gives you so much more creative freedom. So that's what we're gonna do, for all of them. Even though the hat is pretty basic and we really don't need it, we are gonna do it because we want to make sure everything is precise, and modular. So if this changes, yeah, I would recommend it too, because in terms of like actual like proper practices, you want to keep everything as modular as possible. So say if you need to change your ragdoll physics, if we were to use this asset for our hat, if we wanted to say, okay, well, we want to change the ragdoll of the head or change the ragdoll of the body, changing this would indirectly affect this, and you don't want to do that because that's not good, because it's not proper programming. And that's a programming standard, but it applies for a lot of things, the general rule. So yeah, try and avoid that at all cost. So yeah, we're just gonna make a new one, which is fairly simple to do. So we'll close out. We don't need that anymore. Save this for now. So we're gonna make a new folder. The folder we already have, just physics assets. I'm gonna create a new, under here, physics asset. Assign it to the skeletal. Oh, wrong one. See, I'm rushing. I gotta slow down. Physics asset, Josh Net. We'll name this Josh Hat PA for physics asset. Yeah. Now here, when you're creating a new physics asset, these values are quite interesting. You can actually change this within the physics asset, but when you're creating it here, this is basically this bone size and the capsule type is the main important thing. These are basically, when I create all my physics capsules, because it'll do it for you just to save you time rather than having to do it yourself. What's the minimum bone size I want to use to create all the capsules? So if I set it to 50, it's only, well, I'll show you. So if I set it to 50 and I create this asset, in my physics, it's only going to create bones of size 50 or greater, and create capsules for them. So that's obviously really big capsules here. So if you say you just need like either your mesh is huge or you just only need the big bones, you can change the size. But because we want to have the head, which isn't a massive bone, I'm just going to say 20. And here in the primitive type, there's something called, these are all different types of like collision objects or shapes, and they interact in different ways basically. Like you say, a box would interact in a box shape or sphere and so on. We're going to use tapered capsule because similar to a tapered capsule, the difference is it provides two radiuses, one here and one here, and that allows you to create more like, well, I'll show you. It allows you to create more complex shapes. So if we see capsule here, if we go to the components, we only have a singular radius that changes it like that, and a length. However, if I change this to a taper capsule, I'll make this a hell of a lot bigger, so you can see, we now get two radiuses and a length. So it allows us to make that much more complex shapes. If you see what I mean, like it's just that much better. So, but this only provides collisions for cloths. So if you're doing cloth simulation, it's fine. This won't apply for ragdolls and things like that. So yeah, only use this capsule and primitive type if you're using it for cloth simulation. Yeah, cool. So yeah, let's click off that, and then this will generate all bodies. So we want 20 taper capsule will generate all. Now for the head, we don't need all this. 90% of this is redundant, so I'm actually just gonna get rid of it all. We don't need any of this. We only just need the head. This is what I'm saying as well, like, because we have a limited number, this just like declutters everything. Whereas with the other one, if I go through here, with the Josh Physics asset, this one, you have all these extra things, and it's just cluttered. It's just unnecessary. Whereas this, it's just decluttered massively. You just have one capsule in this asset, and you know, okay, I have this one capsule called hat. It's just for the head. It's way more easy to like debug, like change and sculpt, and even just for visualization, because you'll see when we're gonna do the t-shirt, it's gonna get pretty complicated and pretty hectic. So the less you can have, the better. Um, yeah. So now we're gonna sculpt this. We're gonna sculpt this to how we want it to be. Um, yeah, but before that, I wasn't gonna do this for the hat because I think this will be fairly simple to do. But I will do it just so we can have practices going forward. We're only applying the match distance one for now. But if you see here, if we go out of the enabling off plate and we select this, if we go and apply the clothing data, this will now allow us to apply the paint values that we're gonna now paint on for the hat. And the reason I'm doing this first before I've sculpted this mesh is so that when I'm sculpting, I can see how it is deforming the hat, and I can see the effect on the capsule on the hat as I'm doing it. So if I go now and I enable cloth paint, you see now that it has the clothing data applied, it's looking how I wanted to before. So if we go in here and we come down to the paint values, so I'll just run through these quickly as well. You have different paint values, they do different things. Brush is what you use to paint on your simulation value. Gradient allows you to paint on a gradient between points. Smooths the paint values between different like paint value areas. So if this section has a paint value of 30 centimeters and 5 centimeters, if I smooth in between, it'll make it so it's more of a gradual change rather than two stark changes, because that can deform the hat a bit or the piece of clothing. And then it basically fills in areas that are similar to the color, to the paint value you have. So if everything is 50 and I put fill of 60, it'll turn everything into 60. So it's good. That's just speeding up the workflow. But we're going to use the brush, and here we're going to change the paint value. Now this is basically how far do I want the piece the area of the cloth that I paint on to move the max distance from its original point. So this is basically like, I like to think of max distance of like how much do I want it to move. You know what I mean? Like either way, like how much leeway and how much flexibility or how much movement should there be. And this is in centimeters. So for the hat, let me think. What do I want? We probably want not much. It should be minimal. Let's say 2 to 3 centimeters. Really a movement. Your hat's not gonna like, bounce around. You know what I mean? So let's say 3. Let's say 3 centimeters of movement. This you can adjust the brush size, so stuff like radius. So if you're trying to be more fine, I'm gonna take this down to like 2. And strength of 1, so this will immediately. This strength basically is like, oh, do you want it to basically go straight to 3, or do you want it to ease in so you can have like. It is all about control of your painting basically, but you can experiment with this while you're doing it. But yeah. Let's see. So now I'm painting it on. I want to say I really just want the brim to move. I want the center of the hat to be pretty static and pretty set on, and I just want the brim to have some freedom. So let's do that. Let's do that. Okay, so we painted the entire brim of the hat. So that can move now 3 centimeters off when it's simulated. As you can see, there's a stark change. That's going to cause some problems. So what we're going to do is we're going to smooth. Actually, well, I'll show you what happens when you don't smooth first, and we'll come back to it. So now, if we enable this cloth paint, what's going to happen is the hat's going to go a bit crazy because of the physics asset is a bit mad. Actually, no, it wouldn't. Okay, reason being, okay, so it performs pretty well actually, but that's because this currently uses the previous physics asset. So if we change this to our new physics asset, as it now looks like a sombrero, which is kind of funny. It wasn't actually. That looks kind of cool. But yeah, concentrate again. Yeah, so now it's now deformed by our new physics asset. This physics asset here, as you can see. And because it can only move 3 centimeters away from its original position, although the physics asset is wider, you'll see the parts of the hat don't move more than 3 centimeters away. So that's the limit they have there. Yeah, and if we look closely, I don't know if you see, like, if you see the deformation here, it just looks, it's not very, like, it's almost, it comes there, it's like, oh yeah, now I can move 3 centimeters away. It's like very stark. I think when we fine tune it more, you'll see why smoothing becomes quite important. But I want to first, like, I want to basically show you the case in which, like, we don't have smoothing and what it looks like, and then smoothing and how it makes it better. Um, but yeah, so let's continue anyway. So onto the hat physics asset. Sorry, I just got to plug in. I think it's gonna die. Oh. Let's see. Okay, cool. So let's see here. Yeah. So we're gonna sculpt basically. So what do we? How do we want this to interact? And as you can see here now, I'll show you. If I change the size of this, the hat now moves along with it, and that's why we apply the cloth simulation initially first. Like, it's just a base rough one first. Like, sometimes I even just paint all the values 100, just so I can see how it deforms with as I sculpt. It just makes it so much smoother and easier to debug. So yeah, recommend doing it. So we're just now gonna sculpt, and we're gonna sculpt the hat, and sculpt it into like how we want it to look and whatnot. Yeah, so I'm probably gonna fast forward this bit because it's a bit boring. You know, for the hat, I'll leave it just so you see my process. So yeah, so when I'm sculpting, it's basically just I like to play with these values here. Another tip: try and use whole numbers, or not whole number, either not integer, but like try and keep numbers like not like this. So you can change the size on like a sliding scale, but numbers like that are hard to replicate, especially when you're trying to make things symmetrical. So if say I had a value like this, like I'll use a sliding scale to, well, I'll show you, to change like the values of things. But say, which that looks somewhat fine to me. I'll slide this back. We need to make that smaller. Yeah, and I'll use a sliding scale, but if I get to a point where, so I have something like this, which seems pretty fine actually, for collision wise. Yeah, so if I have something like this, if I have like 8.609, I'll just put like 8.6, and here I'll go 4.5, because it's I'll even just go 8.5 just to make it extra, like, just easier. And these values are just so much easier to work with rather than 8.6224 whatever. It's just, you know, when you're looking at it and you're debugging it, you're breaking it down, these values are much easier to work with. So, but looking at the collisions and how everything's looking, this looks pretty good to me. The hat moves how we want it to. We've got some weird behavior. Why can't I see? Let's open up this visualization again. Nope, wrong one. That disappeared. Okay. Yeah, we got some weird behavior at the back of the head, which I'm not a fan about. But that, I think we can get with some smoothing. I hope. Fingers crossed. We shall see. This is kind of my first real attempt, and I'm doing it with you. So if it's terrible, then don't blame me. That looks alright. I'm gonna smooth those values out there. But that actually looks okay. I'm actually weirdly okay with that. It looks like the hat sits there. Probably sits a bit too much. Let me see if I can increase this upper radius a bit. See, no, that actually 8.5 seems like to be a good Yeah, I'm actually pretty happy with that. Front and back, it looks pretty good. Like this is why we do, because the physics capsule may not necessarily need to cover all the mesh, because we only allow it to move a certain point from its original position. So as you can see here, it's not going to move. It doesn't move far back enough for it to intersect with the head. Um, so yeah, that looks. I'm alright with that. I'm quite happy with that. So let's now save that and go back into this where we've applied it. As you see, it's like it's still the old one, so we just have to go in and out of that to rebuild the skeletal mesh. But once we've done that, we should see. Yeah, there we go. It's now we've got a new physics asset applied to it, and it looks pretty good. If we play an animation, we should see it. So the run loop. We should see it move. Yeah. So as you see, it bounces. We've got some physics going on. Now, if you notice, it's all loose and real good, and then here it's like ridiculously stiff. And when he's running, it just looks weird. It doesn't look right, does it? So what we're gonna do to combat that is smooth it. So if we go back to enable cloth paint, we go to here. We're still on max distance. We're gonna go to smooth. If we smooth this middle section out here, with the strength of 0.2, so that's how much smoothing it does. So that's what the smooth area would be. We just smooth the values between the vertex between there and the middle gap. What you'll find is that it's a lot smoother, the transition between the 3 centimeter cloth simulation and the null. So already you can see it just looks better. Like that looks 10,000 times better. There, everything moves so much better there. That's surprisingly really good. 3 centimeters might be a bit much actually. Something like 2 centimeters. Yeah, 3 centimeters might be a bit much. That's a lot of movement. It's realistic, but I want it to be a little more subtle than that, quite frankly. It's just for my liking. I don't want to actually. That's a bit much. So here we're gonna go fill. So if we go fill with a fill value of 2, and we say fill there, fill there, fill there, fill there, fill there, fill, 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 fill. Fill. Okay, so now that should all be a value of 2 now. So if we now rebuild the skeletal mesh, should be a little less movement now in the hat. Yeah, I think that did something. I hope it did. But yeah, regardless, it looks pretty good. And predominantly, the main thing I want to make sure is from the back. How is it looking? Okay, interesting. So if you see here, we're getting some crossover with the mesh, the skin mesh, and that is, well, there's a couple ways you get rid of that. You can either change the physics capsule to push it back so that we can move this backwards, so that there's less crossover with the mesh, so we can like do something like that, so there's less crossover. But what I'm actually going to do instead, I haven't tried this yet, but I'm going to experiment with the a backstop radius and backstop distance. So what I'm going to do is for the entire, I'm going to enable cloth paint. Now for the entire hat, I'm going to add a backstop distance of 1, not fill, brush, of 1 centimeter, 1.5, 1 centimeter, yeah, of 1 centimeter. And what's this going to say is basically, I'm going to write the Brit is massive, apply it to the whole thing. And this is basically saying, okay, well, if the max distance value for a painted part of this region is greater than this backstop distance, okay, so this backstop distance is within the max distance, I'm basically going to stop the cloth from moving within 1 meter of its original value. So that's the back. Like this now, the new endpoint now becomes this 1 meter value, and the radius I think is what is used to prevent it from actually moving into that area. And this is like the distance from the original mesh, and then the radius prevents it from moving into that area. Yeah, so we're gonna paint that on radius of 1, and this is a sphere radius, and I think it applies it to all the painted points. So it has like a 1. We have a distance of 1 centimeter and then a radius of 1 centimeter. So the new backstop is a 1 centimeter. We have a 1 centimeter radius around that prevents it from moving into it. So yeah, so now if we, at least I believe that's what these do. I ain't gonna lie. From what I've experimented, that is what they do. The actual like definitions and stuff I'm a bit confused about, but from what I've experimented, these work in tandem. So now we're going to apply both of this to the mask, and so we've painted on a paint value of 1 for the backstop distance and radius. So now if we enable this, rebuild this, disable that. Yeah, so you should see everything that can be painted is now pushed out already 1 centimeter. So now if we play it, you see there's no crossover. Oh, there is, but it's very, very subtle rather than how it was before. So we might even need a slightly greater backstop radius and distance. But if you see here, it's all moved out a bit too much. Now it looks a bit weird because everything's been pushed out 1 centimeter. And I don't know, it doesn't look amazing. It doesn't really look too great, in my opinion at least. So I think for this, because I want it, especially the upper part, to remain fitted, we're gonna get rid of this. Let's see actually. Let's see the difference that makes. Yeah, it all just becomes that little bit more fitted, especially the upper part. And the way we're gonna get that crossover. So there's less already, but the way we're gonna get that crossover is we're just going to do the backstop distance for the back of that. We're just going to paint it on for the back of the head, rather than the entire thing. So we'll delete these two. I've quickly just got to reload my editor because there's a weird little bug. I keep getting it Unreal that makes it so I don't even know. I can't see the menus, and it just keeps on doing that. It's really annoying. So I'm just gonna quickly reload this. I'm gonna save all and quickly just rebuild. Okay, so yeah, so let's go back to it. So now we're in the mesh. Select this. Enable cloth paint. We're gonna add a mask. Add our 2 new masks. We're gonna get rid of this for now because we're not using it. Set the target to backstop distance. And we just want it for the back of the hat here, really. You know, that's the only part that we really want it to move. So let's set rid like 2, and it was literally just this small region here. But for the sake of consistency, we'll just do the back of the hat. Oh, we do not want a backstop distance of 100. No, thank you. I will say 2 centimeters. So we're just gonna paint this area here, which is where we were having a bit of crossover. We'll just do sort of like the entire back side. Okay. And then we'll do the same for the backstop radius. Yeah, same values, paint value 2. Paint it for the back side here. There must be a way in which to just like copy. I ain't got a clue what that does. Copy vertex color alpha. Oh, that's quite clever. So basically, if you want the entire thing to be copied from a singular color that you've done, you can yeah. So if you want it to go back to all red, you can copy that from the color you painted. Oh, that's interesting. Um, yeah, didn't know that. Anyway, let's paint on some values. So here, there must be a way to do this quicker and more easy, but who knows, huh? That's just for another day. Okay, cool. So that was the only piece we really had to edit crossover. So let's now enable both these masks. Come out of here, and let's have a look. How's he? See, so now it's pushed it out about 2 centimeters, which is probably a bit much here. That looks funky. I really don't like that. I think for the sake of consistency, we're gonna get it this way with the physics capsule, because that looks disgusting. We're gonna get rid of this. Yeah, this one we don't want this. We're gonna use the physics capsule instead for this. Let's rebuild this mesh. We're gonna get it with a physics capsule. That's what we're gonna do. So let's go in here, and we're just gonna basically shift this back a bit, push this up. Well, we're gonna rotate a bit. Let's make it more straight. Shift it back here. I don't want to make it too wide though. And let's make it this radius maybe like 9. That doesn't look terrible. I don't actually mind that. But we're gonna shift this back because it's poking out the front. Okay, so let's save that. And let's see it here. Say we're gonna enable the cloth paint. Let's see. Okay, that looks quite good. Let's preview an animation. Run loop. And as you can see, we've got no intersection. Yeah, we do. Or is that just the mesh itself? Okay, no, I think that's just the mesh itself moving. Okay, cool. Yeah, so we've got no intersection. It looks... we've got a bit, I think. I can't tell. Is that intersection? Was that... I'm trying to think if that's just on the rendering. I think that just might just be the layers of the actual hat. That looks alright though, for now. I'm going to come back and fine tune everything and tweak until I can't tweak anymore, but yeah, that looks alright. That looks alright. That looks pretty good. We get some pretty realistic movement there. Let's do. Have I got the cat pass in here? Yeah. So the cat pass. How does that look? Yeah, that looks really good. Like the hat comes up and from behind. Yeah, we do have a bit of intersection, I think. So pause that. Oh, it's not intersection. It's just the mesh. Okay, so that's just a mesh thing. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. That's just a mesh. That could do with some smoothing or paint values. That's fine tuning. But yeah. Okay, and if I just jump into runtime. Oh, I want more controller connected. Of course, if I see this at runtime. Okay, that looks really good. You got a lot some decent movement. Not much crossover. It's all looking good. Okay, cool. So that's the hat. That is the hat done. I say done. This is like iteration one. I'm still learning as I'm going along, and we're gonna do this about 1,000 times, and we still won't probably have it right. But yeah, it's just about it's an iterative process, and that's just how it's gonna be. Don't know why I closed that. We don't need that anymore, but we will need this still. Okay, now let's do the trousers. I feel like this is gonna be really hard. So let's do the trousers. Um, okay. So yeah, same step again. Create clothing data from section. We'll call it trousers. Um, we'll use it on the hat physics asset for now, but we're gonna create a new physics asset in a minute. I'm gonna apply it to this, to that. Cool. Then we're gonna enable cloth paint. We're just gonna use the max distance for now. Brush. I want to just see. Let's see, how far do I want things to move off from the trousers? Maybe like 10 centimeters, maybe. Um, let's say 20. 20 centimeters. Is that too much? It's probably too much, isn't it? 20 centimeters to move up and down. I'm thinking as well, like vertical movement. How high would it move up and down my leg? 20 centimeters is like a lot. Let's go with 20. It's not a killing one. And let's go 10 here. Let's paint it on. I want the leg to have a load of movement, load of freedom. These worry me. So this middle groin area, the vertices are very stretched. I think that's a mesh problem. That's actually an input problem in mesh. And I think that's gonna cause some issues with the paint. We got to get a new mesh in, but I'm not gonna do that now. So I'm actually gonna avoid painting that. Instead, I'm gonna paint everything around it instead. For the leg, this upper part. So, one thing to remember, I didn't mention it was doing a hat. You need some parts of the trouser to have no simulation, because that's going to be your anchor point. Basically, that's going to be like, okay, you need to stay on the body. You need, you know what I mean, something to like hang off of, basically. So because I mean, I'll show you now. If I applied a pay value of 20 to everywhere, yeah, I'll show you. It's longer for me, but I'll show you. And I did this, it's just gonna fall off. Well, it's not gonna fall off, but everything will just drop 20 there. Literally. So the reason being is because we said, okay, well, with 20 and everything goes off, but there's nothing to hold it up. You know what I'm saying? So like, if everything can move 20 like down, it moves down. Whereas what you say, well, some points we want to stay where they are, so that kind of, and you just literally just really need one. So if I have a paint value of 0, and I have literally, if I go 5, and I have literally just 1 point here that stays, and we enable it, it will down from there. So what you want to do is have almost like a point, a base around certain areas that are like, we don't want you to move and want everything else to move and flow from you. Bear in mind, the reason why it's not behaving like this is because there are no collision capsules on the hat physics asset, but we're gonna fix that. But yeah, that's quite funny actually. I want to add some wind. I'm immature. Yeah. What am I doing? Okay. Anyway, let's yeah, let's get rid of all that because that's not very useful. So paint all this none again. Okay, now let's actually paint again. So 20. Release 10. Let's paint on some more values. So I want the legs to have loads of room, loads of wiggle room. Yeah, a lot of movement in the legs. Let's see. Yeah, loads of movement in the legs. Loads of movement in the legs. I'm gonna pause this real quick. Okay, let's restart that. Yep, cool. So, what are we doing here? So, I mean, really, I want to paint up all these values here. I would leave the grain region unpainted because I feel like it could cause some problems. I want to see this underpass, so I'm just gonna show it. Ooh, that doesn't look very. What's going on here? Huh? Okay. Yeah, I'm not gonna paint. Um, no, I'm not gonna paint anything past the hip here because I want to leave that as a static hold point because I want. Also, the t-shirt is gonna come down over that. I'm pretty sure, so I want to leave that. And yeah, I'm just gonna paint around this area here. This groin is giving me stress, but we shall see. So now, I'm somewhat alright with this. We're gonna experiment some more paint values and backstop radiuses and things like that for that as well. Okay, cool. That hangs like how I'd want it to actually. So perfect. So now let's get some physics capsules in. So what we're gonna do, same as before. We're gonna. I'm trying to fly through this so I don't bore you, but I'm also trying to do this, so I don't want to rush through things. Let's see here. So we got Josh, Trouser, physics asset. So now for the leg, we want probably a couple more bones. Again, we're just doing cloth with our table capsules. Let's say 10, so we get a bit more bodies. Yeah, that seems about enough. So let's get rid of what we don't need. Ooh, we might need that base bar. We don't need any of the head. Don't need any of that. Don't need 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 that. Okay. Everything else we probably might need. Okay, cool. So yeah, let's make this. Let's make the leg. So what we're gonna have is now one thing to know. These here are your bodies. This is a big piece of advice because I made a load of mistakes with this. These bodies on the left here, these are gonna move with the bones in your skeleton when your character moves. So your physics capsules are going to move with the bones. So when you position them, you need to select the right bone in the right area because that's the collision capsule that's going to move with the bone and therefore take the cloth with it. So a mistake I made before was like when I was experimenting with stuff, I would just grab a random capsule and pull it into a place, but then that capsule would move with the foot, so it'd be like the foot would move, and then if it was up here, this would just kick out, and you're like, whoa, what's going on? So remember, keep the capsule in the capsule area, and that is what is going to move with the bone. For certain bones that are quite big, you can use them over a larger space, like the thigh. You can probably just use one bone. But try and keep it so that the bone is in the right area, so that the collisions and the capsule moves accurately. Would be my one advice. Okay, cool. So let's see. Yeah, let's get some sculpting. I'm gonna fast forward this because it's gonna be a lot of me playing around with stuff, and this can be quite boring. So yeah, I'm gonna fast forward this real quick. What's funny is that it's not fast forward. Part of me thought it'd be fast forwarded for me now, but it's obviously not. I still have to do it. Oh, it's too early. Let's see. So Oh, gotta remember, guys, to add the physics asset for the cloth to that. Oh, such an idiot. So now, hopefully, it should. I'll rebuild that. Disable that. We're gonna rebuild that mesh. Should hopefully. Yep, there you go. That's more like it. I was wondering why I wasn't moving. Okay. Oh, now I can't even fast forward that bit because that is like quite important. What's up, right? Those, by the way, the reason why I'm using radius 0 here and then radius 1 here is because these are flipped. The right leg operates with the positive axis down, um, up, and the left leg operates with the positive axis up, down. Sorry, so that's why these are reversed. Let's see here. So I want the thigh to be a bit bigger as it comes down. So I don't really have much issue with that. That actually seems pretty fine to me. Eight's a bit weird number. We'll just get 8. Yeah. Cool. Let's rotate this a little bit more. You know. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. So we got to start off with 8. Oh, where's the knee share bone for this? Oh, damn it, didn't create it. Okay, well, we have to generate all bodies. Yeah, now we have the knee share bone. God's sake. Oh, lessons learned. Make sure you generate bodies of the right size. Let's get rid of all this stuff. Don't need any of this. Don't need any of this. Don't need any of this. Don't need that. Oh, what did I press? No. Save your work, people. You guys are seeing all the struggles of, of doing this thing. Okay, so I went to go grab some food. Um, After I did that, but before I did, I forgot to start. Like, I went to grab some food and I forgot to start recording. But about recording now. Basically, I'll give you a quick update of what I did in the last 10, 15 minutes. So, first thing I did, important, did some refactoring. Because when I was looking through when I loaded everything back up, it just wasn't as organized. So I renamed some stuff. I renamed this folder to Josh Clothing Visits. Renamed them just rather than PA, because when I looked at it, I was like, PA for someone that didn't make it, PA may be a bit confusing. So I was like, well, I was about to click on hat PA. I was like, wait, hold on, that just doesn't look very verbose. So I renamed them. That's just like little things I've done. Regen all the bones, and then I've done some sculpting for them. I'll run you through my sculpting. So basically, what I've done is I kept the waist joint. That's basically just trying to keep a bit of a base for it. Yeah, literally just like a set of base, so I know. And then I got rid of the second sort of thigh leg bone part. And I made this just one thigh bone because I felt like it just didn't really. I didn't think it was gonna do anything, and it didn't really do anything. And from what my experience, it was useless. So I got rid of that. And then I added these joints for the knee. Now, when I was sculpting, I found there was like little weird bits because of how they were moved. So this thigh, this bit here, this yeah. So I have my knee share bone. here I did like you can see sort of like a spherical a sphere there, and that was base, and then in the thigh twist I added another sphere here in the thigh twist. So I have a thigh twist, and a knee share bone, and these basically, the knee is this is going to be the lower part of the knee, and this is going to be the upper part, and together they'll make a good like basis for the knee bone. I'll show you if I preview an animation here. So if we go run loop, basically I was doing what we were doing before, and just going through it and experimenting. So I found that the bones were a bit low, and I wanted to create a sort of a greater like knee part, and this bit acts as sort of like the end of your quad, and then this acts as the lower part of your knee, so it creates a bit of a better, if you see here, yeah, so if you see here, the reason why before I just had it here, and then this bit would just sag down and it wasn't right, so now instead I added this collision capsule here, so that it would create more of a knee shape. Yeah, and then I did the T-pose, the reference pose actually, and then so I added the calf. I kept the two calf capsules that we saw before. I made this one protrude a little bit, so it makes it look like you have some like how your calf would protrude, very slightly. It's just very slightly bigger, and these are just again changes to numbers. As you can see, I kept my same convention of keeping them integers if I can, just for consistency and ease. But yeah, all I've done really is just sculpt the physics capsule, and then, but it looks pretty good. I'll be straight. And then I did do some touch ups to the hat because one or two bits were annoying me. But yeah, it looks pretty good. Again, don't do what I did. Name things correctly to start with, and don't just take shortcuts like I was doing with PA and stuff, because you will have to come back in the end and rename it. And someone mentioned to me that they may not understand what PA meant, so it's better off to just do that. So as you see here, if we now play an animation, it should look pretty good, the leg. Yeah. Oh, and what I did, just painted on some values. You also missed that. Yeah, just painted on some values. I didn't paint very minimal. I think I had like 5 or something, like 5 or 10 for some of these areas here, and then some more parts towards the top. I made it so they had a little less movement. Yeah, I kind of just went ahead, and then I was just like, because I knew this bot was kind of boring and a bit repetitive, and I had explained all the important stuff before, so rather than making you sit here for 30 minutes and watch me fiddle with things and fine-tune stuff, I thought it'd just be better to skip ahead and show you the sort of towards the end of, because that if you're doing this along with me rather than follow my sculpting, because you're not going to have my mesh, so that period of time instead is for you just to experiment with stuff. So yeah, I'll do the same for the t-shirt just so it's not as boring. But yeah, cool. Yeah, so I painted that part together, did some smoothing again. As like we said, it's important. There's a cool little function here. If you go here and you hit smooth, if you go down here, smooth mesh just smooths all the areas there. And this now looks pretty okay. It's not amazing. It's not there yet. There's a couple little glitchy points, as you see in the knees. It's some weird spikes. It's somewhat realistic, but you know, it can get a lot better, and that's the main thing. It can be a lot better. That's really what we're gonna have to focus on, and there's some stuff we're gonna have to do to work towards that. But for now, it looks pretty good. It looks pretty good at the moment. So yeah, I can't complain too much. Looks pretty good. The movement is good, especially the vertical movement. That's the key thing I was trying to focus on with the legs, moving up and down. Again, one thing I did when I was experimenting with the paint stuff, I painted on quite a large value, and it was just moved too much. It just quite frankly, it just moved too much, and it wasn't ideal. So I reduced the paint value to like 5 centimeters or something in max distance. Yeah, so that's what I did. Here, did I add a backstop as well? I think I did. Yeah, I did. Yeah, so I added the backstop distance. I don't even remember what I added in here in this. Let me get rid of this. What did I do? Sorry, I went, I did it, and then ate, and I'm trying to remember what I did here. What value did I add? Yeah, it doesn't really do anything. I don't think I added anything. I might have added a value. Yeah, it seems as if I did. I'm trying to remember what value I added. Yeah. It would, if I added a vat. Yeah, I mean this would be pretty low. And it also wouldn't do anything because I haven't got a backstop radius. So this, I don't know if I just did this now, but this wouldn't actually do anything. Um, I don't think this really needs it. It looks pretty good without it, to be fair. So I don't really think this needs a backstop. Because the capsules, or we want this, and the reason why, I think the reason why we don't need a backstop radius and distance is purely because, so you can get rid of that actually. It's purely because the way we did the legs, and the way I did the legs, I made the capsules bigger than the actual mesh of the legs. Oh, actually, there's a bit of crossover there, so maybe that was beneficial. Maybe that's why I did it. But yeah, so I made the capsules actually bigger than the legs. Oh no, the crossover still still happened. Yeah, this isn't doing anything. But well, I'll leave now. Yeah, the capsules are bigger than the legs itself, so there's no chance it would ever, because I want the trousers to be baggy, so there was no chance it would ever cross over with the mesh anyway. Whereas for something like the t-shirt, we're going to have to add backstop distance, because I don't think I'm going to want the capsules bigger than the mesh, because I want the t-shirt to be fairly loose and fall back on the skin. So that is going to be something to experiment with a lot. Okay, yeah, cool. So now we're gonna crack on the t-shirt, because I'm fairly happy with the trousers. Again, it's all an iterative process. I guess I'm somewhat okay with it. As you can see, like we mentioned before, those vertices at the bottom cause a little bit of problems, but nothing too major. Yeah. Which is actually probably what the backstop is helping. Because if I get rid of that, yeah. Well, see, when I'm going through things, I just kind of the backstop really is doing absolutely nothing. I'll leave it on for now. Whatever, doesn't make a difference. Okay, cool. So let's do the t-shirt now. Let me crack on with that. And okay, what am I gonna do first? First things first, physics asset. So let's make a physics asset. Well, new clothing data actually section, and then we'll create a physics asset for it, and then we'll get sculpting. Should I show T-pose? Okay, I'm gonna quickly make that and sculpt it, and then run you through my sculpting, because this I feel like will take a very long time, and I feel like it might make the video way too long, because a couple of experiments and attempts I've had with this took far too long. Like I'm talking like 5 hours. So let's not do that. So okay, so I'll be right back. I'm gonna quickly sculpt it, and then okay, so we're back now. So okay, so it doesn't look amazing, but we haven't done any of the painting. We're gonna paint together. But it looks terrible actually. But yeah, so basically all I did is I made the physics asset, but then I realized, like we did before, I need to have basically the cloth data applied so I can debug whilst I'm sculpting. So I just made a t-shirt cloth data, applied it to t-shirt, then use a max distance mask. I think I just painted everywhere. Yeah. So I just painted everywhere on the shirt 10, and then painted 0 just to random parts of the neck, just so it would hold it up and not fall off the body. But everywhere else is just painted 10. So that was literally, I haven't done anything. It was just so I could see when I was moving things, how it would impact like the look and things. That was literally the only reason. And now, so I'm at this point here where I've got a pretty good base. So the way I did it, I generated fairly small bones, to be fair. Like I had my fingers and everything, and I deleted them through. And the way I kind of have from experimenting before, the way my approach to this was, well, I want an upper base of two clavicles and then one arm, of an arm each, and neck. I don't know if this is doing anything. I'm just looking at this right now. Is this doing anything, or am I just blind? Is that doing anything? If I were just to take it up, ah, is that doing something? Maybe the front of the t-shirt. Oh, I don't know. I'm gonna leave it. I don't feel like it does anything, but you know, hey, whatever. Who am I to judge? No, that doesn't do much, does it? Maybe I could be. Let me see. Okay, so that does the top. Okay, I was wondering why I had that. Ooh. No. Probably want that to be a bit wider. Sorry. I'm trying to avoid having all the sculpting in here because it's pretty boring. This is literally me for the last hour. Just sculpting random crap. I'll leave it like that for now. No. No, let's go back. Let's leave that for now, whatever. Okay, cool. So, okay, yeah. So we're at this point here. I had my two clavicle bones. This sort of keeps the shoulders like up, and I thought it looked really good while I was doing it. Now for the chest, I was going to initially. I tried actually. I made like two capsules. I added a shape. So basically, if you want to, I'll explain to you what I do. I obviously I did record it. Am I recording now? Yeah. I did record it when I was doing it, but I made two. I added a shape, a capsule to this bone. So if you go in here and you add shape, you can add capsules, whatever. So I added two taper capsules, and this will move now with the bone I added the two, which is spino 3. So that would move with spino 3. And I made two like sort of like pecs, like chest muscles, but they protruded weirdly. And I realized that a lot of what I was trying to do, that might impact. I don't know. It just wasn't as fitted as I wanted to when I was looking at the mesh. And yeah, and when I played previous some animations, I realized I could probably get like not need it when if I use some backstop distances when it comes to painting. So I decided against this. This here really just to provide. I kind of decided to make like a center section. I don't know how good this is. It's causing some some bubbles in the like in this bit here. So I don't know how much I like that, but it was predominantly for the back. These are protruding out back quite a bit, and that was just so I can get the back capsule to stick out more. But yeah, other than that, I then added like the pelvis one, made it quite big, and that kind of defines the side like outwards, like going to side how I wanted to push it out. It sort of make like a that bit in my head was where the trouser line was, so you're gonna have a little bump for where the trouser was. So that's what you'd see there. As you can sort of see, the trouser does actually behave like that. So the capsule follows the trouser line. If you like look closely, just down here, it kind of follows that. So that's why I sculpted like that. I attached, like, added two capsules to the pelvis, and I did these two capsules. As you can see here, it says 3 shapes in the bottom left corner. And so I added 2 additional capsules, and I used them for the glutes because I wanted the t-shirt to sit behind the trousers. So I added 2 capsules there for the glutes, and then yeah, I wanted as well. I don't know if I need these. I'm leaving them in for now. They helped kind of decide how far outwards, sideways. Like I'm, I'm doing things with my hand. Obviously, you can't see my thing. I might add a webcam so you can see my hand gestures because when I try and explain things, I use my hands, so it's quite difficult. But basically, I want these kind of push out on the side, and kind of determine the width of the t-shirt. So that's why I had them. And yeah, for the arm, really just kind of made it the taper capsules the size of the arm itself. Um, Again, for throughout, I used pretty uniform numbers, so it was easy to debug and change and things like that. But yeah, this yeah, to get to this point, it was a bit it was a bit long, a lot of tweaking because there was a bit of crossover and just some weird stuff going on. But yeah, this is where we're at now. So that's the boring sculpting part done. You don't need to see all that. You guys, when you do it, you'll have loads of fun doing that. Not really, it's actually quite awful. But now we get to the fun part, which is get to paint on values. So here, now, if you see here, the reason why I left it sort of like this, and I only had bits here, sort of like for his abs, and I kept the capsules quite inside the body, and only protruding to the back, if very minimally, was so that I want to have a backstop here that stops it from, so the original position of the mesh, I want to have a backstop on that pretty much everywhere so that there's no crossover, if that makes sense. Like, I want to have a backstop so that the t-shirt, when it goes out and moves, it can't come back onto the original mesh basically for like per a certain distance. And I was gonna add it just here, but I don't see why I can't just add it everywhere. Because what I'm gonna do is the backstop only applies if it's within the max distance, and we're gonna have a pretty large max distance, so I'm gonna have a pretty large backstop, I think, of maybe like 10 centimeters or something, and yeah, use that to prevent the areas with a larger max distance from coming back and really showing some crossover with the skin in those spaces. Because I think I don't want the arms to move too much. Currently, if I play an animation, everything's got way too much movement. It doesn't look terrible. I mean, it doesn't look terrible at all, but everything's got just a bit too much movement everywhere. But it doesn't look terrible, and all this crossover and things like that. This is where I thought the backstop could eliminate that. So I kind of left the physics asset alone because the body itself doesn't look too deformed. So yeah, so I'm like, let's experiment with the paint values now. Yeah, but there's just a little bit too much movement in the upper body, in the arms. So we're gonna minimize all that. But yeah, cool. Let's yeah, that's quite cool. So let's take this back to T-pose. Yeah, see, that's just too much movement for my liking. So let's paint some stuff on. Well, let's add the two backstops first. Let's add a backstop distance and a backstop radius. Now for the backstop distance, let's just say like 10 centimeters everywhere. No, that's the radius. Well, let's go just like 1,000 because I want to do it everywhere. And let's just say like 10, and let's do it on everywhere. Cool. Again, I'm not entirely sure how these two operate together, but whatever. Okay, so cool. So we've got that. We've got a backstop distance, backstop radius on there. So now if we apply both of them, again we have it with loads of parts all done that. There's no smoothing or anything, but I'm curious to see how this is going to. Okay. Oh wow. Okay, that looks really good. One loop. Okay, we're getting there ready. Yeah. Looks pretty good. Okay, cool. So we're really limited how far I can move back. Let's see here. We kind of want now. See, there's just too much movement going on. Yeah, it's a bit too much movement really. I'm not a fan of all that. Let's rename this stuff. let's call this MD for max distance. Come on. What's going on with you? BD for backstop distance. And BR for backstop radius. I've not learned my lesson. It's not very verbose, but it's quite like self-explanatory. Okay, so let's expect the BD. No, so that's fine. Those backstops look actually pretty good. We don't have pretty much any crossover. There's a bit of a glitchy thing going on there, but we'll sort that out. Okay, so let's try this now. Let's do some painting. Now in the max distance, this is really what we're gonna kind of play around with. Let's drop the radius down to like 2. Let's get 10. Now I want the lower section of the body to have a lot of movement, so let's just get the T pose. So let's make this all around here about 30. You know, before we do that, I'm gonna actually make everything 0, so we can paint again properly. So I want this lower section to have about 30 centimeters of movement on the max distance. This lower section especially, because that's what's going to be the coolest part. You know, that bit is the part we're going to need a lot of movement in. It's going to be the best part, so we want the majority of the movement there. Okay. Now, and you know, I want a lot of movement in the probably like lower to upper back region. So just like that. Probably a fair bit of movement as we come up towards the chest. Now, in the chest, I want to minimize that movement a bit. I'm actually going to drop that to the chest. There wasn't much crossover. The crossover was mainly in that stomach region. So let's drop it to around 5. Use that for the chest. Yeah, and maybe like the lower parts there. And we use that for the upper back as well. Okay, cool. Okay, I'm alright with that. And now the neck line. Let's 5's a bit much. I just remember like 2 or 3 centimeters of movement. Really, I don't want too much around the neck. Yeah, maybe like 2 or 3. Around that neck area. And probably the same for the arm. The arms we probably want around 2 or 3 as well. Yeah, probably don't want crazy amounts of movement. Probably about 2 or 3 centimeters we want of movement. So we'll do the same for the arm. Those stretch vertices again give me nightmares. But I'm actually going to leave that bit yellow, because I want some part of the arm to remain static, because I don't want this like falling back into the t-shirt. So I'm going to keep that bit static, so if the arm will crumple up on itself rather than that will fall back into the t-shirt itself. So we're going to leave that lower part of the arm with no simulation, with no max distance value. So yeah, that should be a bit more realistic. Okay. I mean, that's the lower part, because it's going to collide with the armpit there. So, but the upper part, I guess we can have some movement. Like here, we could have a split movement. Okay, cool. That. But I don't think we have enough anchor points. Yeah, and then you know what I'm going to do? Paint value of 0. I want to make a line along here, but I don't want any movement. Just along the ridge of the shoulder to minimize movement, because I want that bit to be sort of the part of your body that's probably going to be tightest. Yeah. Okay. Okay, you know, I'm somewhat happy with that. Let's go smooth mesh. I pressed on gradient. Smooth mesh. And now let's see what we're working with. Okay, some glitchy stuff going on. Again, I think that's something to do with some of the vertices on there. Let's see though. We do run loop. That looks good. That looks okay. Yeah, that's okay. I like the arms 10 times more already. Really subtle movement. How's the back looking? Some small slight crossover there. So maybe need to adjust the backstop distance a bit. Could probably get a bit more movement on the arm. But it's looking better. It's looking better already. Yeah, that's looking a lot better actually. That's looking 10 times better. Next looks quite good actually. Yeah, that looks good. That actually looks alright. What's going on here? I'm actually quite happy with that. Let's try out Tic Tac. Ah, looks good. Okay, so yeah, we get a bit of a lump at the back. Oh, that's probably because of the jump to the animation. That's fine. Okay, so it's looking good. It's looking good. Maybe even a bit more movement in the center region. Yeah, it's that's looking pretty good actually. That's looking pretty good. We're having some glitchy points. Let's see if I can just quickly. I'm conscious of how long this bit's taking as well. I don't want to bore anyone. So let me get rid of maybe more of the under armpit area. This. See if we can't eliminate some of those glitchy parts from the mesh. Okay, so that eliminated the glitch there. That looks very good actually. That looks better. Probably do the same with that. We've got maybe adjust the backstop distance a bit. So, what if I made the backstop distance a bit larger? Because in some areas, obviously, the backstop distance is an effect, and it's really not causing much problem. So let's say backstop distance of 15. Okay, cool. And we'll do a backstop radius of the same. Okay. So that's just pushed everything out a little bit more. Oh, that looks great. That looks great. Okay, so that's pushed everything out a little bit more. Okay, do you know what I think it is then? because those arms are now quite out. What I think I will understand. Okay, I think our understanding of the backstop distance has kind of grown throughout this video. I think what the backstop distance is really doing is this creates an offset for all of your max distance. So let me just see if I made. So because I'm sort of learning as I'm going along as well. So if I made that looks really good by the way. Like that's almost like perfect. Well, not perfect because we're gonna have to. It's still bad, but it's better. If I made a backstop distance of 100, I'm painting this whole thing now. So that's 100. I'm presuming we'd push everywhere out. Not even. Ah, yeah, because the max distance is within it. Okay, yeah, so no, I was right. So I was right. The arms still behave the same. The arms are looking like that because of the physics capsules. Cool. Yeah, so yeah, that's perfect. That's perfect. So let's set the backstop distance back to 15 because that looked really good, and we had no crossover. So yeah, so what I'm getting from this is that backstop distance really, like we said before, within your max distance, it's that offset in which it's going to pull the cloth from the mesh. So now if we see here, yeah, that looks really good. That looks really, really good. Oh, bless me. That looks great. I'm actually really happy with that. There's a couple areas under the arm that really isn't that good because you can see that it's all tight. That doesn't look good. It's a bit better there. We're getting a little slight bit of crossover there. That's not terrible though. But that looks alright. That does look okay. So we've seen like these two are especially important. Let's play around with the add and drive multiplier. Why not? I don't want this video to be crazy long because I kind of want it to be a guide as well, and no one really wants to watch a 2-hour guide. So even though this is probably 2 hours, but let's play around with this. I'm curious as to what it's going to do. I have absolutely no clue. I mean, I've played with it once and I wasn't entirely sure. Let's say add and drive multiplier by 15. I feel like it might make things pull towards the position in which it wants to go to quicker, but I can't tell the difference. This looks good though, I can't lie. For some real time, I like the neck a lot. I was having a lot of doubts about that capsule, but it actually looks quite good. Let's try a different animation. Oh, this looks sick. Oh, wicked. That is so cool. I don't like the way the back looks there, so I'm gonna make some touch-ups. Okay, I'm gonna make some touch-ups. I want to make some touch-ups because that's not very appealing to me. Yeah, so I'm going to make some touch-ups to the paint and to the cloth simulation and the physics asset, and yeah, then hopefully at the end of this video I'll have a bit of like a render. What I'll do is I'll do this, and then hopefully at the end we'll put together, maybe like Dado or me or something, we'll put together maybe a bit of like a showcase or a highlight of the cloth sim, because I think it looks quite cool. And I'll attach this to the end of the video, or I might see if we put it on the Instagram or YouTube or something like that, of what we've made in this episode, in this devlog. But yeah, I quite like the idea of having like a sort of like recap, and at the end we'll basically showcase what we've done in this episode. So yeah, I think for the cloth sim, obviously as you guys can see, we do like let's do our cat pass. Yeah, if you guys see, that looks really good. Um, I'm gonna touch up some stuff, maybe play around with some of the movements of the arms. Yeah, we're getting a bit of like snag towards the top. It doesn't look too good. But yeah, I'm just gonna experiment with the painting and the physics asset and fine tune some stuff. Again, this is a really iterative process, but I hope this has been somewhat like explanatory in terms of how to do that for more complex clothing items. Um, Obviously, I'm still learning as I'm going along, and you know, the better I get at this, the more I'll share with you. Really, we'll start looking at including a better understanding of all these and how we can really tailor them to sort of needs. But we sort of have the general gist of it for the start, and we can start to create some pretty cool complex stuff. So that looks pretty good to me. Um, so yeah, the trouser could probably use a backstop for that thing there, but that's also not painted, so that's a mesh problem. But yeah, anyway, these are things I want to find too. I don't want to bore you too much. So yeah, cool. I might make this into a little snippet. Yeah, yeah, cool. So that's that, guys. Yeah, trying to think. Yeah, cool. So that's this devlog pretty much. That's clothing sim. This was not just I hope you guys just don't think that I did this all in one day. Like, this was a lot of experimentation to be able to know what to do. Like but yeah, so if anyone is struggling, shoot me any questions if you have any questions there. Or if I did anything badly or did anything wrong, let me know if you know how to do something better, because I'm still learning too, and this is the process. So, but that's the fun part of it. Yeah, sweet guys. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys enjoyed the teaser as well. And yeah, more episodes like this to come. I'll catch you guys.